So one of the things that the Trump regime has been doing, they've been doing many illegal things when it comes to their deportations, which I would categorize as kidnappings and abductions and human traffickings. But one of the things they've been doing is sending people to third-party countries. So in other words, let's say you're an immigrant from Ecuador. In theory, they could just round you up and send you to Somalia, right? So there were lawsuits about this where people were saying, like, you can't fucking do that. You can't just round somebody up and send them to a country they've never been, where they don't speak the language, they have no roots there, they have nowhere to go. That's horrific. That's a colossal human rights abuse. Well, the Supreme Court just decided, nope, that's totally legal. We're fine with that. We support that. No problem whatsoever. So let me walk you through this. This is in Common Dreams. Incomprehensible. Liberal justices blast Supreme Court decision allowing Trump to resume third country deportations. Quote, the government has made clear in word and deed that it feels itself unconstrained by law, free to deport anyone anywhere without notice or an opportunity to be heard, wrote Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. The Supreme Court on Monday temporarily lifted a lower court order that had required the Trump administration to give migrants the chance to challenge their deportation to a country other than their nation of origin, clearing the way for resumption of such removals and prompting a strongly worded dissent from the three liberal justices. The conservative majority behind the ruling did not offer a rationale for the order, but said the preliminary injunction handed down by a district court judge in April is stayed pending appeal. They didn't even explain themselves. They just said, yeah, you want to deport people to countries they've never been? Don't care. Go ahead. Totally unexplained Supreme Court ruling on third country deportations will produce widespread confusion in lower courts. Did the court object to the nationwide aspect? Think judges lack jurisdiction? Something else? Who knows? Wrote Politico senior legal affairs reporter Josh Gerstein, offering a prediction of what's to come. Trump administration efforts to deport immigrants to countries they are not from has become one of the most contentious aspects of U.S. President Donald Trump's crackdown on immigration. In May, the Trump administration put 8 men, most of whom are not from South Sudan, on a flight said to be headed to South Sudan, though the flight instead landed in Djibouti. The men have been held in Djibouti since U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy told Trump administration officials that they unquestionably violated a court order he issued in April when it attempted to carry out those third country deportations to South Sudan. The Supreme Court's order stays that ruling from Murphy issued in April, which directed the Trump administration not to deport immigrants to countries other than their home countries without giving them adequate notice to raise concerns that they might face danger if sent there. However, quote, in an order Monday, Murphy said the 8 men in Djibouti remain protected from immediate removal despite the Supreme Court's ruling, referencing another order he had issued last month separate from the one put on hold by the Supreme Court. In a blistering dissent, Sonia Sotomayor wrote that the ruling exposes, quote, thousands to the risk of torture and death and comes down on the side of the Trump administration even though it had violated the lower court's order. Sotomayor was joined by Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson, quote, the government has made clear in word and deed that it feels itself unconstrained by law, free to deport anyone anywhere without notice or an opportunity to be heard. Apparently, she continued, the court finds the idea that thousands will suffer violence in far-flung locales more palatable than the remote possibility that a district court exceeded its remedial powers when it ordered the government to provide notice and process to which the plaintiffs are constitutionally and statutorily entitled. That use of discretion is as incomprehensible as it is inexcusable. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin called the ruling a victory on Monday. Quote, DHS can now execute its lawful authority and remove illegal aliens to a country willing to accept them, she said in a statement. Fire up the deportation planes. When you think it can't get worse, it does, said Jill Wine-Banks, an MSNBC legal analyst, in response to the ruling. So I need you to understand what the impacts of this are, because this is super important, guys. You could take somebody and send them not only to a country they've never been to and don't speak the language, etc. You can send them to a war-torn region and they have zero protection and they're stuck there. It gets worse. You can send them, and they're trying to indeed send them, to failed states like Libya. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to tell you guys because most of you already know this from previous coverage that we've done on this show. But Libya now has open slave markets. I'm not kidding. When Gaddafi was overthrown, it became a failed state. Now you have open slave markets. So you can round up an immigrant here, no due process, no habeas corpus, no time, immediately put them on a deportation plane and send them to a war-torn region like South Sudan or Congo, or send them to Libya, where they will probably end up in literal slavery. Do you not understand what's happening here yet? Do you not see this for what it is? That's why I look back and I think it's adorable that we ever used to debate whether or not this regime was fascist. When you look at the laundry list of shit they do, when you look at rounding up 288 people and sending them to a literal concentration camp in El Salvador, where they say nobody ever gets out of here alive, these are innocent. These are people who have a mom and dad tattoo. And they said, oh, that's a gang tattoo, we're going to send you. One of these guys had an autism awareness tattoo for his 15-year-old brother who had autism, who he helped with. They said, oh, that's a gang tattoo, we're going to send you there. You have horror story after horror story of innocent person after innocent person sent there. No due process whatsoever, no habeas corpus, never got a day in court, no hearing, no nothing. Sent there, and they're just stuck. We were able to get Kilmar back. There was only one of 288. By the way, 75% to 90% of the people who were sent to the concentration camp in El Salvador, no criminal record whatsoever. None. Now they're talking about sending up to 30,000 people to Guantanamo Bay. Immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. They're also talking about, we're going to do a segment on this in a second, they're building a concentration camp in this country now. I'll give you the details on that in a little bit. So we have a rogue regime here. They're rounding up, not just that American citizens are being rounded up. There was a 4-year-old American citizen with cancer who was deported without any medicine whatsoever. ICE Gestapo thugs arrested a woman immediately after she gave birth. There was a colossal backlash to that, and they eventually were forced to let her go. But this is what they're doing. Why do you think the ICE Gestapo thugs are covering their faces? Why do you think? Because they know they're the criminals. They know they're the gangsters. They're the thugs. They're the ones violating the law on a daily basis. That none of this stuff would actually hold up in court. I've told you the stories of ICE thugs waiting outside of immigration courtrooms, and even if the case is dismissed, they arrest the person who comes out. This is the complete and utter breakdown of rule of law in this country. When you raid Home Depots and when you raid 7-Elevens and hair salons, you go after innocent people with no criminal record who are just good, hardworking family people who don't bother anybody, never cause any problems. If anything, they're a massive help to this country. This is what they're doing. And now you could be rounded up and just shipped. You could be here from when you're a child. From when you're a child. Been here decades. They can just round you up and ship you to Libya, and then you might end up in slavery. I mean, this is, I'm sorry, guys, we're way past just like impeach and remove. This is like impeach, remove, and criminally try these people. Kristi Noem needs to be in prison. Stephen Miller needs to be in prison. Donald Trump needs to be in prison. The colossal degree of human rights violations, it is astronomical what we're talking about here. Can't have it. Literally can't have it. And now the Supreme Court is aiding them in their dirty work. Without even making an argument, they say, yeah, go ahead. Ship out whoever you want with no hearing to wherever the fuck you want them to be. Who cares? Send them to a place with a civil war. Maybe they die, maybe they don't. Who cares? Send them to a place with open slave markets. Who cares? Go for it. Go for it. This is the crime of all crimes, if you ask me. And it's now the case that immigrants have been fully dehumanized, right? Like, that's what's happening here, is they're not treated as human. They're not treated as people. They're just viewed as like, we do whatever the fuck we want with you and you can shut the fuck up. They don't care about your story. They don't care about the details. They don't care about the specifics. And as you know, we've talked about this before, but over 90% of these people, no criminal record whatsoever. None. Just regular people living their lives. We've heard U.S. veterans have been arrested by ICE. We heard about that. U.S. Marshals have been arrested by ICE. This is what they do. It's a fascist country. That's what it is. And these are fascist decisions. And anybody who supports it, yes, they're fascist. There's no way around it. It's that simple. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.